The Butcher of Pakistan, the true story of a medical terrorist, corporate healthcare greed, and a corrupt legal system by Eric Deters. What I'm about ready to read is the introduction and prologue of the book. Al Pacino is one of my favorite actors. He separates himself from other thespians by his passion. His passion displays itself in his roles. In every movie Pacino stars, there's a moment during the film he unleashes an extraordinary verbal tirade or inspirational speech. In The Scent of a Woman, Pacino stood and delivered a defense for his young friend, Charlie, in a student assembly. In The Devil's Advocate, Pacino nearly convinces the audience to see the world from his point of view, the devil himself. In City Hall, as the mayor of New York, Pacino delivers a eulogy at a young black boy's funeral, which stirs the soul. My favorite Pacino movie moment is in And Justice for All. As criminal defense attorney Arthur Kirkland, a small-town lawyer in Baltimore, Pacino finds himself defending a judge for rape. Kirkland disdains the judge. Pacino's character cares. He cares about his clients. However, he is no simple idealist. He is also pragmatic. Most of all, he cares about justice. He knows justice and the law do not always meet. What transpires during his opening statement is one of the best moments ever in a courtroom drama. I'll leave it for you to watch. If anyone is asked what justice is, their response will include various variations of truth, fairness, and what is right. A misconception by the general public is justice equals law. Nothing is further from the truth. Being in the law business for over 30 years, I've witnessed injustice too many times in the court, in politics, in public policy, and in life. The money machine promotes injustice. By this book, I hope to shed light on injustice in this country. My life motto is borrowed from a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. Aggressive fighting for the right is the noblest sport the world affords. I believe this. I practice it. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. The book chronicles a true and original story of a medical terrorist, corporate healthcare greed, and a corrupt legal system. Initially, I arranged for someone else to write it and gave them all the materials necessary. However, it became impossible to relate the story I lived for a decade to someone else and expect them to do it well. As the old saying goes, when you want to do something right, do it yourself. So I did. Only I know all of this story. The purpose of this introduction is to outline the parameters of the book. I'm not a Shakespearean prose writer. My style was choppy and blunt, more Hemingway while failing to be Hemingway. Regardless, I believe I succeed in narrating the story in readable fashion. This story covers every possible legal process and issue imaginable. This book should be standard reading in every law school in America. I chose Acclaim Press as the distributor. Acclaim Press is a small Midwest publisher that published 2 prior books I wrote. I admire Doug Seitz and Acclaim Press, and I trust them. I'm allowed editorial freedom, including naming the book, the politically incorrect to many, Butcher of Pakistan. A New York editor I engaged to proof the book immediately suggested a title change. Not on my life. Durrani is the Butcher of Pakistan. You will learn how he earned the name. As reflected by photos inside these pages, this book condenses 1,000 banker boxes of information. The prologue will whet your appetite for what is in store. Most of the chapters are short for a reason. I wanted to divide the material well for the reader. Several chapters in the end are long in order to share with the determined and interested reader more detail of the hospital and insurance company conduct. It remains incomprehensible. This is not a political tale, but what occurred is squarely seated in the politics of a court system and my views and actions that make me a pariah in both major political parties. I am a conservative libertarian and populist who supported and still supports President Donald Trump. This makes me persona non grata to establishment Republicans and liberal Democrats. I also apologize in advance. This story contains no false modesty. I hate false modesty. It is a form of a lie. Modesty is a virtue. False modesty is a lie. It is simply a fact that what I and my legal team achieved in this cause is exceptional and unique. This is a one-of-a-kind story in American legal history. I have thought of and strategized every hour of every day and night for over 10 years about the plight of the Durrani victims and how I could secure them justice. This book is another move towards that goal. My conscience is at peace. I have attempted everything possible for these victims. It still has not been enough. Those responsible for Durrani victims' plight should be shamed for eternity. This story is a blemish on the soul of medicine and American justice. By purchasing this book and spreading the word, you will help us in the shaming. As epic as this story is, and as amazing as the anecdotes are, you will not learn of hundreds of more stories until the litigation is final. The reason is this must be drafted so we don't care if our enemies in the litigation read it. They will read it. I want to stress in the phony world of frivolous lawsuits, this story does not involve car accident whiplash cases. This story involves unnecessary spine surgeries. I republish entire letters or emails in their entirety when doing so simply works best. I assure you those entire letters or emails are worth every word. Also, when I use I, it is sometimes meant to be we or Deters Law. All decisions which require the past or present owner of Deters Law to make, they made. Reading the story, you may conclude one could expect evil from a surgeon, the hospitals, their lawyers, and law firms. But for the court system to collaborate in their corruption is a new level of wicked. During these events, I believe, and others close to me believe, that my life has been in danger. Why the concern? Because of the powerful evil interests I fight with reckless abandon. The publication of this book will increase their animus towards me. These interests always work to suppress these stories from ever being told. Leonidas ordered one Spartan back to Sparta to inform Sparta and all of Greece what occurred at Thermopylae. If Leonidas never sent Dilios, no one would ever know the story. It is why I wrote this book. If I never undertook this project, it would never be known, and that would be a tragedy. The entire country needs to know what happened. The book uses the public record documents and behind-the-scenes accounts. No one will sue me for defamation because this is all true. My wife worries no one will believe the story. The main basis of all the facts came from my own personal experience, emails, letters, documents, depositions, and court transcripts. A multi-episode and multi-season documentary is planned from this book. Look for it soon. I refuse to sign a confidentiality and non-disparagement agreement on settlements in this matter. I sent an email refusing to sign the Cincinnati Children's non-disparagement agreement while stating there will be disparagement. Dr. Abubakar Atiq Durrani is only referred to as Durrani based upon a legitimate issue whether or not Durrani graduated from medical school. Regardless, he does not deserve the title doctor. I'll never be world famous, but at least I know I played a lead role in the most incredible medical legal story ever told. As Durrani victim Nick Batista told me, it is a mortal wound to the reputation of the medical and legal community. If the events described in the story occurred in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Miami, or a state or jurisdiction without Ohio's unfair laws and systems, the cases would have settled for the first year for an extraordinary amount of money. It's unfortunate for the victims. The local Cincinnati, Ohio media as a whole ignored this story except reporting on any action against me. I hope a thoughtful national journalist will cover our collective plight. I predict they will. Nothing against Aaron Brockovich and Dark Waters, but this story surpasses both in the struggle factor. This is a true story. It's also a story that is not over. The story must be told before too much time passes, and the uncertainty when this story will be over. For the victims of Durrani, it will never be over. The world must know now what happened to the victims of Dr. Abubakar Atiq Durrani. Unlike the stories you hear in the news regarding a surgeon performing horrific procedures or performing acts of sexual deviancy on patients, This story involves much worse compounded evil. From 2005 to 2013, Durrani performed unnecessary spine surgeries on unsuspecting victims in Cincinnati, Ohio hospitals. The hospitals knew he performed these unnecessary procedures, but they craved the money Durrani generated. Durrani's insurance company, Medical Protective, refused to pay the victims. I fought and continue to fight an epic battle unlike any other in the history of American law. The Ohio court system, led by the corrupt Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor, refused to provide the victims timely trials. The Kentucky Bar Association and Ohio disciplinary system would do all they could to aid Durrani by assailing me at every turn. This saga covers 1,000 victims and 1,000 anecdotes, including the following. A federal grand jury indicted Durrani for healthcare fraud. Rather than face a federal jury, Durrani fled the United States to Pakistan. 79 men and women died while waiting for their trials. More will sadly follow. At the rate trials are scheduled, trials will be going on for 20 more years. Deters Law won a record number of verdicts, including the largest in Ohio history for a medical malpractice case, $39 million. Durrani allowed his German Shepherd dog Hank to hang out in his lobby and patient rooms. Patients contracted MRSA. Hank had MRSA so bad, his veterinarian demanded Durrani not allow Hank around other animals or people. According to the veterinarian records, Hank's penis dripped with pus as a result of his MRSA infection. A whistleblower against Durrani at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, Dr. Charles Melman, is pursuing a lawsuit against Cincinnati Children's Hospital over their retaliation against him. During this battle, I was suspended, retired, went broke, served time in jail for contempt fighting for trials, was banned from the courtroom, banned from the courthouse, considered suicide out of spite and frustration, fought 2 state bar associations, was betrayed by friends and family, including my own father, brother, and the Hamilton County prosecutor, had the IRS criminal division sent after me, almost lost my arm, and nearly died from a staph infection, and kept the trust of 580 clients, financed the battle by borrowing and paying back millions, and to this day, I still stand. One of my most important assistants in this cause is Sarah Jones York, a Cincinnati Bengal cheerleader who was fired as a teacher for a relationship with a student. She is now married to him and they have 3 children. She famously sued the Dirty.com for defamation and won her trial. I successfully represented her in both her criminal and civil case. Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway owns Durrani's insurance company, Medical Protective, and Chuck Holbrook, another critical character of the story, flew to Omaha, Nebraska to lobby him for the victims. The attempt failed. Chuck Holbrook contacted Dog the Bounty Hunter about traveling to Pakistan to grab Durrani. We sent a similar message to Eric Prince of Blackwater. A Cincinnati mass shooting outside and during our first federal trial targeted a federal judge in the same building as our trial. The shooter decided he could not pass the front door checkpoint, so he shot up a bank across the street. One of the trial lawyers for the Durrani victims, Fred Johnson, may have been murdered. Our lead trial lawyer, Alan Statman, also represented the chief witness against Pete Rose. One of Durrani's partners threatened to sniper shoot Dr. Tayeb, Durrani's employee who turned against him. The law firm Deters Law is now owned by Glenn Fagan, whose families were mobsters in Newport, Kentucky in the 1950s and 60s, led by enforcer Screw Andrews. My grandfather, Bud Deters, editor of the Kentucky Time-Star, served on the cleanup Newport Committee of 500 against the mob. Today, Glenn and I, united in this cause, chuckle at the irony. We have set a record for affidavits of disqualification against corrupt judges. We filed 40 total against Maureen O'Connor and Mark Schweikert from December 15, 2017 to November 21, 2019. In the history of jurisprudence, no group of citizens in America suffered more incomprehensible injustice than the Durrani victims. All the pain, suffering, and misery from unnecessary spine surgeries, judicial corruption born from medical industry money. In American history, no judge ever sealed jury verdicts. The Ohio judges sealed the Durrani victims' verdicts. The victims have faced unjust Ohio laws, including what is called the statute of repose and limitations on damages. All of this is explained in the book. In 10 years, there have been only 56 trials for 580 clients. 79 men and women have died. The ordeal forced 40 victims to file bankruptcy. The ordeal forced countless foreclosures, evictions, and lawsuits against Durrani's victims. Despite obvious bias, judges refused to remove themselves. A corrupt judge entered a gag order against us for speaking out. Local media failed to cover the story based upon the hospitals being one of their leading advertisers. We have faced countless unfair court rulings, which are detailed in the book. The entire Ohio court system coddled Durrani. Healthcare companies, Medicare and Medicaid, approved the unnecessary surgeries and then have sought reimbursement through what are called medical liens on the settlements we obtain. We sued them all on this issue. The state court refuses reputation, credibility, and impeachment evidence common in all trials. The state court withholds the truth of Durrani's absence. The state court refused BMP2, increased risk of cancer evidence. You will learn more about BMP2 in the book. The state court refused one filing number for the massive court filings, which increase our court costs based upon the clerk charging $1 per page. If we file a 20-page brief in 500 cases, it costs $10,000. Our clients must pay these costs. The victims will be gravely prejudiced if one of our experts die or quit, and since this litigation will cover 20 more years, it will happen. The state court ordered us to pay all the court costs even before cases were resolved. This has never occurred in American legal history. The state court sat on post-trial motions for over a year. This delayed the appeals of our victories by 2 years. Medical Protective, Durrani's insurance company, makes no offers on any cases. COVID delayed trials for a year and a half. Estates and bankruptcies throw our clients into the probate court and bankruptcy court bureaucracy. We pay millions to try case after case, including out-of-town experts flying in for every trial. The bar associations investigate all the baseless bar complaints the Durrani team file against us and ignore all the ones we file. David versus Goliath has nothing on this story. From 2005 to 2013, Durrani performed unnecessary spine surgeries on over 1,000 unsuspecting victims. The hospitals knew and looked the other way for the oldest reason since Judas took 30 pieces of silver. The destruction of the bodies, minds, and lives of Durrani's victims is unquantifiable. While refusing to succumb to all the obstacles, power, and corruption, I would nearly lose my arm, all I owned, my liberty, my law license in 3 states, and nearly my life. The litigation would pit me, nicknamed the Bulldog, and my merry band of loyal nicked people, as I referred to them, against Durrani, the largest medical malpractice insurance company in the country, and the largest employers, largest hospitals, and largest attorney defense firms in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's my hope this book grabs the attention of the entire country, and pressure from every direction crashes down upon those responsible for all the harm. I must secure and define the malignant legacy of the butcher, the hospitals, their lawyers, the Ohio and Kentucky court system, Maureen O'Connor, Mark Schweikert, and all the rest. The profits of this book will be shared with all the Durrani clients of Deters Law because it is our collective story and needs to be told in a collective manner. It is my greatest honor to do so with their permission and support.